Jared from Wave to Wave. I'm actually driving a Boston Whaler 230 Vantage. And I just want to give you an idea of, this is a really popular brand, obviously one of the most storied boat brands. Boston Whaler's been around for a long time. And they make great boats. They kind of built their brand on the small little bay boats and center consoles and tenders. And I actually had one of my brothers had a little 13-foot Sport way back then. I think it was a late 70s model or early 80s model. And it was a great boat. And this is almost new. It's like a year old, I think, or 2 years old. But one interesting thing about a lot of new boat design, it's not just Boston Whaler, I'm not ripping on just Boston Whaler, is the interior layout. I have I'll show you some pictures and video of how this works, but you can see I'm in the helm, and behind me there's a bar. And the bar is kind of useless in a boat like this. Then you have a bench seat that folds down at the back. And it has the passenger seat, which is a retractable back post, so you can actually do it either or, front and back. And the problem is you get all the passenger weight on the port side of the boat. And it's a real issue because when you're cruising along, you're going to be using your tab to fight that. And you can literally have probably 4 bodies, if not more, on the port side, and you can only have one captain on this side. And if you're putting people in the bow, that's not even going to help at all. It's going to make it worse. So that in itself is just a really bad design. Never mind the fact that the passenger seats are a little bit too wide for a single and a little bit too narrow for 2 people. They're very strange dimensions. And it just shows me how a lot of boat designers don't actually use their product. They just design for layout, configuration they think is going to hold the most bodies. And it's a really bad way to go because safety should be the number one thing. Everyone should be sitting down, facing forward, practically speaking. And yet you should also have the boat kind of balanced too. So when you have a passenger load, it should be perfectly balanced in the boat or very close to that. But when you have all the weight on one side of the boat, on a V-hull boat especially, any boat for that matter, you're going to cause a major problem dynamically. So again, not picking on Boston Whaler, almost every other dual console boat, they call this a dual console, it's a glorified version of a bow rider basically. And other than that, the fit and finish is really good. It's kind of a shame that it's so badly designed, but that is a perfect example. The driving position actually is pretty good. So in a dual console boat, some boats you'll see that the helm is too far forward, so you're leaning forward all the time. This one's actually quite good. The controller's not bad, not the best, but it's, when you're used to performance boats, ergonomics and design is like front and center. You got to be in the boat and you got to be able to reach everything perfectly. Otherwise, it'll be a disaster. So in these consumer boats, that's not really front and center. They kind of make it just good enough, and it's okay. I think this controller, you want to have a bit of an armrest for it, you want to have it a little bit closer, but it's okay. It's not terrible, but everything else is terrible. Like the layout is awful and makes the boat really bad to drive. And so yeah, that's a horrible design flaw. Something you interestingly never see. Like when you think of like automotive design, there's so many standards in place for a reason, for safety, for uses. Boats don't really have that. There's no standardization. There's no safety council necessarily other than the Coast Guard that doesn't. It's more about Navy flotation, and that's about it. But the reality is, this is a perfect example of really bad design.
Here's one thing actually I don't like about interchangeable seats, even though they seem kind of cool in some ways, and they are, is in the you release this one and it goes back, and you always have a little bit of play in the mechanism. So if you move it up to the next latch, there's play in there. So there's always going to be, just the nature of the design, play. This is going to rattle. That's going to rattle. That's going to come loose over time. Again, not the end of the world, but I just hate that kind of stuff. It just feels, crappy to me. But that's my personal opinion. I know everyone's going to be a little different about that. But yeah, I don't love these. I think it's kind of popular, but actually not a great long-term strategy. Storage under there. That's actually a good storage idea there. But yeah, let's see the one thing that's kind of awkward too is if your head is here and this person's head's there, it's actually not great. We hit heads. So. Again, a lot of people who design boats don't seem to actually use boats. So I always find that interesting.